On this journey to achieving your life's potential, we, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance, will partner you right through. Go on, dream unlimited, dare unlimited, live Zindagi Unlimited. Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance.
Welcome to Economic Times webinars. I'm your host Pallavi. This is going to be a special series for ET Wealth, Be Future Ready Financially. The first session today will explore various challenges, the dilemmas parents go through when it comes to their kids' education and careers. Our experts here will help you find ways to evaluate how much money would you need, and they will help you to plan early and be ready for the future. I'm happy to be joined by Harshvardhan Rungta, Certified Financial Planner and co-founder Rungta Securities. Harsh has almost 20 years of experience in the financial services industry and heads the financial planning and wealth management consulting practice of Rungta Securities. I'm also being joined by Shubhajit Mukhopadhyay, Executive Director, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. Shubhajit comes with an experience of over 25 years in the life insurance sector. He's been instrumental in building robustness in actuarial functions. He has interests in diverse subjects ranging from risk management to product management. He's passionate about the evolving digital space and analyzing customer behavior. I welcome both of you to this special webinar.
Thank you, Pallavi. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Pallavi. And nice to be on this. And I hope the discussion is for all the listeners out there.
So let's start without much delay, and let me begin by looking at how education expenses has spiraled in just a matter of few years. If you look at some very basic courses like a graduate course in engineering or an MBBS course, what costed few lakhs has gone up by 20-25%. Looking at factors like the overall cost of education includes not only the tuition fees but hostel charges, coachings, etc. The overall cost comes out to be quite huge, and if a parent somehow misses on the planning part and the goal setting part, it can cost him a fortune. So Harsh, I would like to start from you. What role does planning play, and what are the ill effects if the planning is not adequate? Parents may plan, but it may not be adequate. So what actually can happen?
Pallavi, you raised this particular topic, and I'm happy with education and keeping children future ready. I mean, that's one of the biggest desires and goals of any parent. I mean, I have a child who's 15 years now, and he's already looking at undergraduate, the options available for graduation and etc. Let me first begin this with an age cycle. If I just talk about the age cycle, we have people who are now getting married, when they are about say late 20s, 28, they would be probably 30 by the time they get married. When they have children, either they are about 30 years of age. Now, when the children grow up and require the kind of funding for higher education, so I'm talking of post-graduation for that matter, they're already about 20 years. So if you had a child who's 30, over 30 or 32 years of age, your child will require large sums of money for education absolutely at around the time when you're going to retire yourself, because you will be in mid 50s or late 50s by then. So what happens is all that you saved throughout your life for your retirement, because income is going to stop, is going to suddenly be required for children's education. So it is imperative that we think about these elements as well, prepare a separate part for children's education. Now, with regards to what you asked, specifically saying that consequences if you are not able to. So, well, very clearly we are aware of this fact that times are such today that even if you want to pursue, so I'm not talking about the courses that you referred to. You did refer to your engineering, MBBS, etc. Let's not even we'll come to that part. But understand, even if you want your children to run your business, if you're in business and you want your children to run your own business, they still need to be very, very well highly qualified. I mean, gone are those days when you would just talk about आके दुकान में ही बैठना है या ऑफिस में ही संभालनी है. That is no more applicable these days. So education is primary. Food, clothing, shelter, education. I mean, that's all that you can actually give your children. So the idea is that you need to be very, very well prepared. How much is sufficient? Well, there is no answer to that. I mean, because you don't know what exactly your children will pursue when they grow up. Ideally, as a parent, what I would recommend, all people could do is that assume a ballpark figure. You say that I want to, make arrangements depending upon your own, of course, financial situations. But you can say I want a 25 lakhs, I want a 50 lakhs, I want a 1 crore or 2 crores, whatever. Just fix a ballpark figure. Now, you don't know what the child will pursue and what the interest of the child will be. So you need to have funds available. Use it for whatever purposes. Of course, engineering, medicine, of course, there are different costs. But because you don't know the interest of the child, maybe you will want to just keep money available and then use it for whatever the child is requiring. So I think that would be essentially my opening remarks for that matter, and some food for thought so that we can take this further.
Sure. So on that note, you said that one can never know how much would be required, but there needs to be a ballpark figure, and of course there has to be a way to achieve that amount. We'll come to that, but I want to take a first reaction from Shubhajit. Shubhajit, you've been in the industry, for a very long time. You've seen the sector very closely and how things are changing in the insurance sector, so to say. So do you think insurance today has become a more understandable and a less complicated subject for end users? And what role does digital platforms play in, spreading awareness? People are actually, going to websites and portals and finding out about insurance policies. So what do you think, how has insurance changed in the last 10 years? And then later on, I'll talk to you about the education costs and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Pallavi. Yeah, it's been quite some time in the industry, so I've seen some of this journey of the industry that are undertaken. And to my pleasure and satisfaction that we have definitely seen towards much more customer centric approach, and towards much more understanding effort to understand the customer's need, the insight gathering of the customer need processes, how the customer operates, what is exactly they are looking for. And that has really gone a long way, if you ask me, a long way to improve the product category that we have seen 10 years back to now. I think it has gone a tectonic shift, we may call it. There are several lines of product which are, I believe that we are almost at a global standard. For example, whether they are unit-linked products or term products, they are as competitive, as cheap as in global standard it can be. I think that another shift that has happened is that the effort from all round aspect. For example, I will give an example. There is a lot of effort now companies put on train the agents so that they can advise better. Life insurance requires a little bit of advisory in the form of a selection of the right set of products, understanding the need of the customer. And in such cases, it's important for the advisor to know the need of the customer, and a lot of training is required. Insurance company has really put in a lot of efforts in training this particular thing. I think we have always seen the most successful seller are the ones who are actually able to provide the best quality advice. I think digital tools also helped enable the seller to actually up the game. In addition, if you look at the digital channel has helped actually to uncomplicate matters even further. In a digital channel, when there is a different kind of a customer that coming on the channel, you can't have a very complicated proposition sitting out there. You have to offer a very simple proposition which helps the customer to understand on his own and very quickly. I think some of them pushes the industry to actually come out with a very simplified manners and simple propositions which customers can understand. And we have seen really a big change on the way the customers are coming to the digital channels, exploring multiple options, doing a search before choosing a product, and so on and so forth. To that end, I must say, the last but not, I think one of the points just wanted to make. Yeah, to that end, I think the regulator has also put a lot of emphasis on that. Whether it's a point of sale product they have introduced a couple of years back, this year they have just introduced this standardized term product, Saral Bima, which also will go a long way in standardization of the product, giving a very simple, straightforward solution to the end customer. So I think there is a holistic effort towards across all stakeholders to make this industry much more simplified, simple, and caters to the right need of the customers. Slightly long, but I suppose it's important to give all the perspective how it's happening.
In fact, Harsh, as Shubhajit just mentioned, how the sector is changing and the perception, or not only of the companies, but the consumers are changing towards insurance. We would like to know from you, what role does insurance, and particularly life insurance, play in the overall financial planning and the overall goal setting when parents are setting up goals for their kids while the kids are still younger?
So Pallavi, is this for me or for Shubhajit?
Yeah, it's for you.
Okay. Well, when you look at planning for anything, so when you're talking about children who are young, about 4 or 5 years age, or 10 years of age, 15 years of age, you're looking for something in the future. You say that I want to plan so that is fund for that education when the child turns 20 or undergraduation, which is 18 years. Now, most importantly, talk about saving, accumulating that wealth up to that age. Now, you're assuming a couple of things within that. One is that you will continue to live, earn that money, and save it. Now, what happens in a situation where a parent, the earning member of the family, or the co-earner, so there could be a joint, double income family. If one of the earning members, which is a parent, passes away, the family's income gets impacted. Most often, we see that it boils down to survival. Forget about investing. So, what happens with educational goals in that context? So, insurance, even if you're planning for your children's higher education, you must understand it is underlying assumption is that you will live, you will earn, and then you will save. What if you're not there? Your child still continues to grow. Your child will still turn age 18. Your child will still be 20, 21 years in age, will require admission in colleges, and will require money. No college at that point in time, no educational institute is going to be kind enough to say, okay, you can't afford it, you lost your parent earlier, and because of which you could not that well. So, okay, so the world is not that kind. As a parent, it's important that you keep in mind that all contingencies need to be taken care of. So, an adequate term plan is what we're talking about as basics of insurance, not only for children's education, but even for the financial well-being of the family and surviving. So, as an earning member, if you're not there, you need to make sure that all the surviving members dependent on you need to enjoy that financial freedom and that security which you are providing. And considering the cost that insurance comes at these days, I think this is the least you could do. It's just probably 1 month's outing expenses. I mean, you have go out for a family outing once a month, and with that much cost, you can actually provide a financial security for your family. Especially now, because you're talking about children's education, you need to make sure whether you're there or not there, your child still gets that education that you wanted. And it's not only about I am around, I want my child to be educated. Even if you're not around, you want your child to be educated. So insurance is the only mechanism. I repeat this, it is not the one of the options. Insurance is the only mechanism that helps you fulfill your dreams even if you're not there. While you're alive, there are many other investment options. So insurance is a very integral part of financial plan.
Yeah, so in fact, it should be the first step. So let me come to Shubhajit now. We're talking about the role of insurance. We're talking about how consumer behaviors are changing. I want to understand from you, 2020, as we all know, has been the toughest years in many decades. And what we've seen, of course, has had impact on the insurance sector overall, and as well as in the consumer perception. Now, this realization has come really, to everyone, because death of these, the bread earner is a topic which is usually not talked about in the family. Nobody wants to talk about, buying a term plan because of, because he is the only earning member in the family, or maybe because the person has, dependents. But with 2020, things have changed. How do you see this change, and what impact will it make to an individual's financial planning? Shubhajit,
yeah, right, Pallavi. Yeah, right, Pallavi. Actually, people not about talking. People don't even want to think about this. It can happen to the next door neighbor or someone else. It cannot happen to me or my family. So I think that's the way thing, and it's a very deep behavioral and issues that cannot be addressed so easily. So it's quite normal. What has happened with this particular pandemic that people at first had their almost everyone has become very frozen, extremely risk averse, not going out, not touching anything, not going out. High end of the pendulum swing completely on the other end of the risk awareness. Slowly, of course, people have come out of that level of risk awareness, but what is instilled within them for sure over a period of time is understanding of the risk in general and life insurance or insurance in particular. That, okay, one of the critical way we can manage individual risk, financial risk especially, is to get an insurance, whether it's a life insurance, health insurance, and other form of insurance, which help the ensures the financial well-being. As Harsh just said, it creates a foundations, and I think that has been a significant revolution. The kind of number of queries we are receiving, what can happen, especially what is happening in the health insurance, what is the right set of life cover should we take, are on the rise. And we have seen generally also as the industry, the protection is on the rise, protection products are on the rise, because the appreciation has gone much greater way. So yeah, so I suppose, which is a very welcome shift, because it helps as a society to be covered by the appropriate amount of insurance. It puts a lesser burden on the society, so that as a society, we can grow and become much more independent and prosperous if everybody has the right set of insurance in the society. Because I still remember one of the big natural disasters that is happening in Kerala, the flood. Only 5% properties were from the natural disasters. I think that has to go up, because otherwise the society will have to bear the cost of not having the right set of insurance. I think whether it's a pandemic, natural disaster, I think right set of insurance is important. And unfortunately or fortunately, this kind of events actually led to a greater awareness of such.
Of course, so there is of course a pressing need for increasing awareness, and through such webinars, this is our aim to reach out to people who want to make sure that they don't compromise on their child's career and their well-being. So talking about the overall financial planning, Harsh, I'm coming to you now. Could you tell us what are the major factors one needs to keep in mind while he's setting goals, while he's planning for the kids, maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line? So what are the first steps one needs to do, and what are the factors?
So very clearly, Pallavi, I mean, so there are many who start planning even before they have a child. The moment they get married, someday it is going to happen. I mean, I'm going to have a child who's going to turn 15, 20, so why not save from now? It's a brilliant idea. Why not? Because it is going to happen after a while. Some people start planning when they just about have a child. Now, some people postpone this saying that we don't know what a child is going to happen. This is a common problem that we face in our financial planning practice also. So the idea is very simple. As I said, the objective should be that I want to make funds available. Let the child pursue their area of interest. It's not that if you're a doctor, your child will also be a doctor. Gone are those days. I mean, there are lots of different things happening, very interesting things that the children are interested in these days. But everything requires money. Some require less, some require more. So what you need to do as a parent is that, fix up a very clear agenda saying that I want to accumulate and make available my child an amount of savings. Now, this is taken into consideration after considering inflation. What you may look at cost today will not be the same after 10, 20 years. Now, there is going to be a cost of inflation to be included. Now, that in an educational field, I mean, again, we cannot define saying that, it's like a CPI, the cost of, consuming consumer goods goes up every year by 5 to 7%. No, it does not happen that way. I mean, this could exponentially grow. Average rate of about 10 to 15% is reasonable. Now, what is another challenge that you take in consideration is that there are two elements. One is protection of your income. You need to make sure that, as I mentioned, that you are going to continue to live, earn, and invest. The second element is whatever I invest needs to grow and beat inflation. So I need to have a combination of both. Where in one area, you will need to make sure that even if I get less returns, it's fine. I just want to make sure that the fund is available. And there is no ifs and buts about it. The second is market driven, saying that, okay, if the markets go volatile, I still have something with me. If not, I have the potential to beat inflation. So an average return So some part you're earning say 7%, some part you're earning 15%. A combination of both these investments, if they beat inflation and get you about 10 to 12%, I think you're doing reasonably fine, because you need to have a mix of both. I want to make a very important point here, which we experienced in 2008 and we experienced in 2020 as well. Come to 2008, there was a market crash, a global recession, and markets fell considerably. I mean, they were down by about 40-50% again, if you're talking about those kind of numbers. And so was the case in March 2020. Now imagine a situation wherein your child was to go to and enroll into an educational institute starting academic year April 2020, and all your money was lying into equities. I mean, a 40% fall in the market would have shattered the dreams of many of the students there. So what we need to understand, there's a combination of two. Now, your investments for your children's education cannot be dependent on market performance till the last date. If your children are going to be going for higher education and you need money after say 3 years from now, it's going to be prudent that you remove money from equities gradually from today itself. Because education does not give you that option to say, okay, markets are down, pay your fees next year. No, it does not happen. You still need to pay your fee at that point in time itself. And when you compare it with retirement, for example, so if you're going to retire at 58 and you're fully invested in equities, that may not be a prudent decision, but in case you're still doing that, at 59, you don't need the entire corpus. You need only a portion of that corpus, which can be used out of even if a market crashes. Now, this does not work well when you're saving for education, because education, you cannot say I will postpone it, I will do it next year. Invariably, you miss the bus already, because it's so back to back that you can't, except for of course double graduation, which you talked about experience. I'm not talking about that. If you're looking at children doing an undergrad and then a graduation, then you need to have funds available. So one thing that parents would need to keep in mind, we encourage in our advice as well, is that you need to make sure the funds for education, even if they get you less returns, it's fine. Just ensure they're available when you need them. And one of the products that insurance industry has is a children's plan. I mean, this kind of ensures that kind of a benefit. If parent is passing away earlier, you get some money, and you get money again when the child needs it. So there are some combinations you can use. Most certainly, the returns are going to be low. There is a reason they are low, because they provide in the feature pack. I mean, there are a lot of other benefits attached to it. So as I said, and from an investment standpoint, divide your money into growth assets and protection, and try and get a maximum optimized balance, so that you get a overall return. The weighted average return on your portfolio is above inflation. If you manage to do that, I think you're doing good.
Yeah, in fact, you gave some examples also to make our viewers understand why we are discussing all of this and what is the importance of advanced planning and how much, why you need to protect the wealth that you are creating. But also, I want to add something to this, Harsh. That there are the formula or maybe the strategy could be different for different individuals, and there might be a couple who have a single kid, and there might be people with 2 or more than 2 kids. So how would that make a difference to their financial planning if we were to understand? And also the point that as you mentioned, that besides just an MBA and besides an IIT or something, there are very many courses and different interests which children have. But there is also a problem of changing interest. When the kids are younger, they don't know what particular career they want to pursue. And by the time they reach their class 10th and 11th, it's all changed. So will that derail the goal setting which the parents have done? Can you help us understand this?
Yeah, so I began with saying that we do not know the interest of children. I mean, where they're going to be heading, right, what is going to be their area of interest. So as a parent, what I did and what others could do is simply just make available some kind of money, which is in the best, you make your best guesstimate, not even an estimate. I mean, it's just going to be a guesswork saying that, roughly about so much money is good enough. Of course, we don't know whether it's going to be enough or not. They could simply pursue something which does not require the money at all. So good. I mean, that can also be the case. So what we could do is just make sure that the worst case scenario, if an education needs to be done in India, a career-based education, what is going to be the funds kind of availability? That is one. Now, which inflation has to be taken care of. Now, another good part of the educational field developing, I would say there's a lot happening in the educational offerings as well. I mean, when we were in school and colleges, we had science, commerce, and arts. That is what all that we could do when we got into college. I mean, if you're very intelligent, you go to science. If you're not so intelligent, you go to arts, and then other commerce is something who wants to do business or something like that. Now that is not the case. Even the 11th and 12th, they could be science, arts, commerce, etc. But you have the IB curriculum which has been introduced. Then you have in the undergraduation liberal arts, which has been included. I'll come to the financial planning part. I know I'm not getting into the academic counseling here, but what is the flexibility? I'll tell you what is important. Why we need to keep that in mind is that while you may start with an interest to pursue science, you may suddenly feel that I don't want to pursue this. You could shift, because the liberal arts allows you to do that. I mean, you could shift in the next year into something else. Now, how is it impacting financial planning? What does the parent do in such a situation? So, very simply, as I said, if you're enrolling, because these things are going to happen, far more flexibility is going to be offered in future. So I think you're fine as far as you keep, a respectable amount available. And respectable amount could be subjective to your family. I mean, but I think any career-based, middle class kind of a family arrangement, 50 lakh is going to be an average kind of a cost in today's time to give a, professional career-based education to your child. So I think about 50 lakhs plus minus could be very indicative. I mean, of course, this is not keeping in mind any benchmark. So if you say, can I become a doctor with 50 lakhs? I don't know. I mean, very clearly, in the absence of anything, 50 lakhs could be a benchmark to start with. Just keep an eye with what you're growing up to be, and then keep aligning yourself to that figure, and plus minus you can continuously do. And so good part, I mean, just to sum up this particular topic, the good part is developments in the educational field are allowing interchanging the streams very flexibly. So I hope this just continues. Those are very expensive, of course. So there is a cost for everything. So this is also becoming an expensive affair. But yeah, I think just keep arrangements available to whatever extent you think is comfortable, and then just pray for the best.
Yeah, if I add,
please.
In a couple of points here, I think thanks Harsh for bringing out pretty detailed some of the nuances. I think one of the things, couple of things I suggest, rule of thumb we should all follow is earmarking the investment, what you call a ring fence. So please don't make your child investment with all that. Okay, I have a pool of money, I will manage my these, that, everything, my car, my tour, my child's education, all these things. No, please don't do that. Please earmark that and ensure there is a very high exit barrier to that earmark. So it's not that you just require a liquidity, you try to take the money out of that fund. No, don't do that. Please, that requires a little bit of discipline to ensure there is a separate earmark assets and there is some level of exit barriers. And I suggest that's where some of the life insurance product with ULIP and other products also helps. It both gives you a long-term return, and provides certain exit barrier. And God forbid, any untoward thing happens, that goal is protected. That goal you will be never compromised. Right. Any other investment you do, something happens, that goal is in jeopardy. Any good life insurance product with a child benefit will ensure that the fund is earmarked, the fund is taken care of. Anything that has happened, that goal is set, and you cannot easily touch on the fund for your other purposes. So I think these are the three principles our audience and people follow that, and I think that way you can clearly at least feel assured that your child's education will be protected whatever happens during this period.
Yeah, so there were some thumb rules coming in from Subhrajit. Harsh, I wanted to understand from you if you would like to tell us 2-3 quick things, how parents can align their goals with the different financial instruments, and maybe if you can give us examples of, what sort of a portfolio should one have, what should be called as an ideal portfolio, because obviously the percentage would depend on the individual's risk capacity and other factors which we already discussed. But what should be the ideal strategy to go ahead?
Okay, so we'll look at it from 2 points. One is, how much should you save out of your income? I mean, to begin with. I know that people listening this are essentially parents, but it's never too late to understand something, because you can imbibe these rules for your children when they grow up. You can actually educate them on that. So the first rule is, of course, the moment you start earning, save from the first salary. I mean, I'm sure all the audiences today are parents. Of course, they are much more older than their first salary is level right now. But why am I saying this? Because you can inculcate this kind of a habit with your teenagers as well. You give them pocket money, so tell them to save one small bit of it. I mean, of course, the idea is not to create wealth out of this money, but get them accustomed to this idea of investing. So this, if you haven't started saving for your own self till you become a parent now, I think you're already late. So start doing that immediately. Now, talking about what would parents do? I mean, if you're a parent right now, what would your strategy be? So one, very clearly, as I said, that you need to keep a target in mind. So you think of a particular corpus depending upon your lifestyle, depending upon where you think your children will go for education, metros, which kind of institute. So you'll get a fairly good idea about what the cost is going to be like. Or else you fix a ballpark figure, say that whether I'm there or not there, I want my child to get 50 lakhs at his or her age of probably 18 or 20 for that matter. Then you do a backward calculation to say, if I were to invest for the next, say, 10, 15 years, if your child is 3 years, and you say, I want to invest for the next 15 years, you have to have a mix of two things. One is, of course, you need to invest in growth assets. Now there, of course, you can look at equities. You can invest in equities via mutual funds, wherein you set up an SIP, a systematic investment plan, for a fixed amount of money. And that we believe over a period of 10, 15 years will help you beat inflation and give you a higher return. Of course, it's going to be market driven. Other part of your money, as I mentioned earlier, has to be secured. Saying that ifs and buts, I don't want market conditions. I don't want any kind of clauses attached to it. I want to make sure that my child gets money when he or she is 18 years or 20 or 21 years in age. Now, there are children offered by insurance companies. Now, these are very specifically designed and they work like a trust. I mean, more of, it's not trust per se, but the structure of the product is like a trust. Now, what do these policies state? The parent, the earning member of the family is insured in the policy. The beneficiary, the money will be given to this particular person, which is the beneficiary, is the child. So child is not insured. Now, this point needs to be made out very clearly, because in the name of children's plan, people land up buying insurance policy with a child is a life assured. There is no need for having the child to be the insured. The parent needs to be the insured, and the child needs to be the beneficiary. Now, these products are designed in such a manner. Suppose you buy an insurance for a 10 lakhs sum insured, and the policy tenure is say 15 years. You start paying the premium as a parent. If something happens to in the tenure of 15 years, like suppose 5 years later the parent is no more, a 10 lakh sum insured is given to the parent itself. Future premiums are waived off. You don't have to pay anything further into the plan because the earning member of the family is not there. Policy continues, which means the premiums in the policy continue to be paid. There's a premium waiver rider in it, which says that no further premium needs to be paid because the earning member of the family is no more. Then on maturity, which was originally decided by you, which is your child's age of 20, the child will again get the sum insured, which is 10 lakhs plus the bonuses or the value of the units that has been accumulated at that age of 10. So this ensures one part is whether you're there or not there, the child is going to get some amount of money for his or her higher education. Now, this will certainly not, if you evaluate this product in terms of returns, this product is not going to be beating returns of mutual funds or FDs or PPFs and all those kind of combinations. So if you argue about this product pure returns, then it is not a comparable product. But if you argue and talk about this product basis the features and the and the structure of the product, which says that when the child is at 20, I give you money at that time, not when the child is 5 years old, because it can be misused. If your child is 5, who takes the guarantee the money from 5 to 20 will remain intact. So this structure has its own benefits. So you need to divide your money very sensibly, low return products, but a good structure, and high returns, which help you beat inflation. So overall, I need to get a good combination.
I think that's a very important point. Actually, in life insurance also now there are products like unit link product, which you sometimes call fourth generation products, which are as competitive as any other instrument can be. And not only it actually some of these returns are linked to the market and invested in growth asset, like he mentioned, like equity and other places. The charges are all extremely competitive. For example, we have a product like Wealth Assure and Wealth Plus, which are very attractive from that return perspective as well, subject to, of course, the market linked benefits. In these products offer, for example, both of our products offer, in case something happens to the parent, not only a lump sum is paid, the entire future premium is added to the fund. So not the future premium is waived, entire future premium is added to the fund. So your fund immediately get a lift up, and then it start getting further investment on that. So not in regular cases, the fund premium would be added over the period of the course of the policy. In some cases, the premium is itself added on the fund at the time of device happening. So basically, it ensures you not only get that much, you actually get more than the desired goal is. Even there is some problem happens with the market growth rates on some other things, which is not always control of the individual investor or policy holder. These additional money that is added to the fund ensures that the growth happens faster than the normal. So these are the two nuances that is available in currently the unit linked products, and we have two products which are very popular and actually caters to all the benefits. So I sometimes feel, why have a two different set of products? You can have a one set of products, if done well, cater to all the requirement of the growth, protection, as well as some level of de-risking from the market vagaries.
In fact, Harsh, there should be a mix of all of this, as you mentioned rightly. Goal setting requires the need to evaluate, maybe through some own research and some advanced planning. I also now want to come down to working parents. So far we have talked about the single household, but now in case there's a double household, and of course the expenses are of course double. But then how can both the parents, if they're both working, how can they mutually set the goals and they can achieve the desired results? I mean, what difference would it make if both the parents are working?
So in case of double income families, I mean, there is obviously some bit of convenience in terms of, continuity of income. So even if one member of the family is not there, the other can at least have the basic essentials requirements which are then fulfilled. So, you will not have the same standard of living, because two people earning, you have a different standard of living. But in case one member is there, at least food, clothing, shelter should not be a problem. But that does not take away the fact that you will not have enough left to invest, which you need to do for your children's education. If you've not saved enough, the consequences. You had also posted a question earlier to me, asking, what if you've not saved, then what? Okay, then the situation, you align it with the age cycle again. Think of it like this, that you're 55 years of age and your child is 20 years of age, which is quite possible. And now you need to spend on higher education. If you've not saved, either you give that education, which is not a choice. Quite honestly, that's not a choice anymore, because you're ruining the entire life of that child. It's not about, career. It's not just career. Everything depends on what you've given your children. And quite honestly, the only thing as parents that we give to our children is education. That's the real only thing that we give to our child. There's nothing else that we give to our children. And everything else is temporary. I mean, whatever we give them, the real thing is only education. Now, if you're not going to be...
That's the thing that stays with them throughout their life.
Absolutely. So if you're age 50 or 55 and your child is, say, 20, 21, asking for, or rather requiring money for post-graduation, and you're not able to provide that, you may think of taking an educational loan. To take an education loan also, you need to be showing and demonstrating to the lender that you are going to be working and be able to pay that. Or you will have to burden your child with that kind of loan, saying that once you start earning after this education, start paying it out of your loan. That is also fine. The question is, you need to give education. Either you provide for it, save for it, or you borrow and then you pay. In either cases, you have to pay. So the idea is that you start saving at an early age. And I'm glad you bring this topic up today, because it's a very, very important topic. And most often or not, it is brushed under the carpet by parents, saying that I don't know what my child will do. And this is the question that we face. So we don't know. पता ही नहीं करना है वो क्या बड़ा बन के बनेगा, तो मैं कैसे इन्वेस्ट करूं, क्या करूं, कितना करूं. So you bring this up, it's a very good point. And I again emphasize on one point. If you're a parent, all those who are listening, if you're a parent, we don't know what our child will pursue. Very clearly, there is no discussion on that part. But there is no excuse to say that I will not keep an X amount of money available. If there is more than that required, they can always borrow. If it's less than that, they will have a kickstart for their career. I mean, they'll have some money to do their own startup business, whatever. So there is no substitute to that. Also, keep in mind that all the investments that you're doing are linked to your income. And that is why I re-emphasize the point that you need to make sure if you are not there, your income is replaced, and that only insurance can. So understand all the things put together. There is a solution to any problem. Small, big, large, medium, what is a different problem. Plan it well. And I'd like to also re-emphasize on a point that Shubhrojit made, I mean, of earmarking your investments. I'm telling you, it works wonders. In my 20 years of practice, I'm telling you, all those investments that we have tagged, suppose there is an investment which has been started, and we internally in our system, in our backend system, we tagged it to say children's education. Even 10 years later, those funds were not removed. Why? Because there was emotional quotient attached to that, saying that, you know, every parent, when you wanted to go on a holiday, I said that X amount lying in your fund, but 20 lakhs out of that or 5 lakhs out of that is for your children's education. You know, there was a moral guilt in the parent to say that I'm removing that money to go for a holiday or buy a bigger car. So there has to be a tagging. Okay, set something aside, say this is for my children. So a parent feels guilty to simply dip into that fund. So either you can have the investment in a child's name itself so that you will definitely not remove it, or you invest it in your name but tag it. You know, put a, if not anything else, just put a post-it on that investment to say for my son, for my daughter. Trust me, you will never be able to remove money out of it. But at least the, you know, pleasures of life for your holidays and the higher car and the iPhones and 55-inch television, all those things, at least you will not remove that money.
In fact, I was coming to this aspect, and you mentioned about education loans, and the things that you just mentioned about iPhones and stuff. Everything is now available on EMI, and that is the reason why people are getting into a debt trap, because they are getting into that EMI culture. It's already been so many years now. We get all these interest-free cashbacks and stuff offers, and people are lured to, you know, buying things on EMI. So if you could make us understand, like especially for postgraduate courses or when people are planning to send their children overseas, how much of it you know, can be helped out with the education loans, and what is the approximate amount required for a loan for a higher study?
So if you're sending your children overseas, you must understand that you know, you're going to pay tuition fees, you're going to pay accommodation, you're going to pay for other expenses over there, which invariably, I mean, if you're sending them to the States or the United States or the European countries, I mean, the cost will be approximately about 1 crore is what you need to keep in mind. I mean, 1 to 1.5 crores will be your cost. I'm not getting into specifics of management studies, undergraduation, medicine. I'm not talking about those things. I'm just saying you have to keep in mind that you need about 1 crore to 1.5 crores. Now, education loan has a limit of approximately 20 lakhs. So, you know, at the best of what I know, even if you go to borrow, I mean, they're not going to give you a 1 crore loan. So the rest you have to anyways provide for. I mean, there is nothing that you can do about it. So when you're going overseas, the costs are going to be exponential. If you're going to the Asian countries, going to Singapore and all, it's slightly cheaper. I mean, you could get the same education at about 35 to 40 lakhs. I mean, of course, and these are again my standard disclaimers, depending on, of course, what you're doing. But I'm saying the cost would be about half or 1/3 of when you go to Europe or the United States. So when you go overseas, the loans, of course, we're now going to take care of everything. So you'll have to provide, and for a major chunk of that cost will have to be borne by you, which you need to keep in mind. Education loan, of course, on paper, there's not supposed to be asking for collaterals, securities, etc. But that does not really happen. They'll want a guarantor. Your parent will need to be a guarantor. They see the earning capacity of your parent, and of course, once you start earning, in case you go for that kind of a situation wherein you say that once I join, I get job, I will pay out of my salary, which is fine. You could even do that, but it's not that easy. Quite honestly, I mean, it's not that easy as getting a car loan is. Quite, I mean, it's easier to get a car loan and phones on EMI than to actually, despite it being a priority sector lending. I mean, education falls under that category. and still it's not that easy as compared to buying an iPhone on EMIs. So yeah, you will need to make provisions for it. While we're on this topic, I think for all parents listening, I mean, just try and get your children also understand the value of money that you are putting in for their education, especially the post-graduation and undergraduation courses. I mean, don't make money so easily available to them. What one of my clients, in fact, what we suggested, it worked very well. I can share that experience here with you. The parent had sufficient funds available. I mean, that is how we had planned it, so that they had the money available. And when the child actually required money to go overseas, and these days, I mean, especially in metros, I don't know about the cities, but all children for undergraduation want to go overseas. I mean, that's the ambition because of peer pressure, because of whatever reasons. So despite best of the education being available in India also, we have very good undergraduation courses across Delhi, Gurgaon, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore. I mean, all across, you have good undergraduation options available. So what I advised this parent to do is that I told him that why don't you just tell your son, because his son was very, very hell bent on going overseas for undergraduation because his friends were going. So what I advised them is to ask his son to go bank hopping. I said, whatever banks are there in your vicinity, just ask him to go and walk into a branch and say that I want an education loan of 20 lakhs to go overseas. So he did that exercise and he realized how difficult it is to get that kind of money. It's not that easy that you walk in and, it's not an ATM that you go and just like your father gives you money and you just encash it. So he realized that it's going to be very difficult getting that kind of money. So he better study well, even when he goes there. So it's not that it's coming free. It's not that there is somebody who's not worked hard for it. So maybe parents could do something like this, that keep the money available, but don't tell them. Tell them to first go and find out sources, go for scholarships, apply.
That could be an interesting way of getting to that corpus which is required for fulfilling the goals. And in fact, on a lighter note, there is a film which came out early this year, which is completely about how a father goes to all the extents to fulfill his daughter's education, because he didn't know that it would cost him a crore. And there's a film made on this. Hindi medium. We saw this this year. This movie came out, and it just shows the difficulties that he has to face. He has to sell off his family business, which he already has been fighting for. But anyway, on that note, we'll start with the Q&A, and I would like to start with the first question now. This question says it's similar to what you mentioned, one of the clients, Harsh, that I'm getting married next year and I want to invest aggressively, but I don't know where I can do. And guide me on how I can start to create a corpus for my family, which includes kids in future. So this individual is quite prepared, and at least he has started thinking on these lines that he needs to create a corpus. Suggestions for him?
Yeah, so when you don't have any specific goal at this point in time, so you don't know what the situation is going to be, you're not even married, you're going to get married. So I think it's a brilliant thought to start investing. So that's a very good idea. Now, your general approach will be wealth creation. You say that I have some money, I want to take, so it says I can invest aggressively. So clearly, I mean, because you have no timeline, these are not short-term goals again. So you will invest into equities. I mean, very simply. And don't tag it to anything at this juncture, because you're not even married. So children will come after that. I mean, so at this juncture, just say that I have some money. My minimum time horizon, I will not touch this money for next 10, 15 years. And this is not available to me. It's like your deductions from your salary, you get it straight on retirement. You don't have access to that. So with that approach, I would recommend that you start investing in equities, do an SIP, keep the flexibility at this juncture. So at this juncture, you may not want to bind yourself into a product wherein there is no movement allowed, and you can't move out of it, get back into it, go to another product. So at this juncture, you can't do that because there is no clear goal. So keep it open. You will have to approach probably a mutual fund for that matter, wherein you can exit at any point in time, you can stop, you can increase, you can decrease, you can do all that bit. So at this juncture, this amount is not accessible to you for the next 10 to 15 years at least. And start with as you get married, then you start having responsibility, and start moving of short-term goals, emergency, children's education, retirement. Then you can divide that once you come more closer. But very rightly, do not wait for these things to be visible and then start investing. Start investing and make all the decisions next couple of years as you find visibility?
Sure. So let's now move on to the next question. This question is from a from a female. She says that my husband had bought some equity shares while he was alive. So unfortunately, now she's taking care of the child on her own. She says she wants to reinvest that amount of money and she wants to plan for her kid who is just 5 years old. So for a single mother with a kid just 5 years old, how should she, invest this amount? Should she buy a insurance plan? Should she also, I think Shubhajit wants to answer this one.
For a single mother, it's important. I think I'll go by the fundamental rules of the game. That the objective is that you have a definite goal that has been put out, because the single mother, she has to ensure that a child is being taken care of, gets a good education at the end of, now she is 5 years, at the end of 15 years, so 13 to 15 years. So the horizon is also fixed. Now the important point is that what is the kind of investment here she has an option. Now that she has decided to earmark, I suppose it's important for us to start investing in a combination fashion or in a particular product which gives her that return. Discuss with the financial planner exactly what are the options available. I always believe that in such cases, we don't want to recommend only one solution that will be suggested. Understand the pros and cons of various instruments and then take a decision. Important point is that don't touch that amount. Allow that to grow for the child education. Earmark it separately. Start now. Don't delay the decisions. And all these things are critical. And review the portfolio every 6 months or 1 year. So if some changes are required to be done. So rather than saying that in equity or invest in life insurance or invest in mutual fund, it's important to understand the other form, what are the other sources of income, what are the other sources of other kind of expenses he is likely to meet. All these things are very important to give a good advice. So I suggest take a advice to that extent, but ensure these 3-4 important aspects are taken into consideration before making any decisions.
In fact, Shubhajit, do you think insurance in some way can also be, helpful in creating an alternate source of income, maybe at a later stage? We're not considering this question, but in a general sense, if I ask.
Yes, of course. I think insurance plays out only in the long term. Now even mutual funds also talk about long term, and we believe that insurance is a very good game. And especially, I am telling you, today's unit linked products are really attractive in terms of cost benefit analysis. Some of these products, the cost goes as low as subsequent premium information as low as 50-60 bips, with the overall cost ratio between 1.5 to 2%. So if you invest, and some of this has a income SWP and other features built in, which allows us to not only create a wealth, we call this SMP, creating a wealth, protect the wealth with right rebalancing. When Harsh mentioned a point, in 2008, if you are investing in equity, you would have seen a huge downfall. So it's extremely important to rebalance the portfolio as the portfolio comes near maturity or start generating income. Subsequently earn income over a period of time, and that too tax-free all along. So it's somehow it will definitely help in terms of making a appropriate financial planning with this. But I believe for a child plan, and I can tell you, all our popular products has a child version for the simple reason because it fits the need very well. I think, as I say, start investing early, earmark the investment, whatever happens, your money is safe to cater to the goal that you have set out for. So,
and one point, if I may add, one point here. Because she's a single mother now and the child is 5 years in age, I mean, buy adequate insurance in form of term plan. I mean, because now here on the child is only dependent on you. And if you are not going to be around, for whatever reason, God forbid anything goes wrong, but if something were to go wrong, she should have adequate term insurance so that the child has financial security in case of, both parents not being there. And appoint somebody because you're a single mother now, so you'll have to have a guardian. So make a will, make a guardianship, a letter of guardianship, because many a times, I mean, this is slightly away from the child investment that we're talking, but this is important because the letter of guardianship needs to be very clearly defining who the guardianship of the child will go to in case both the parents are not there. And if you do not have a letter of guardianship, do not assume that your immediate relative is naturally entitled to guardianship. No, that is not true. So the guardianship will then be given by the court. The court will decide whom the guardianship should go to in the absence of a specific letter of guardianship. So just make a letter of guardianship to say that in case I am not around, the guardianship of this child goes to, say, my mother or my father-in-law or my mother-in-law, my brother, whomever it has to go to, it has to be very clearly defined. So don't leave it to assumption, saying that naturally my brother will take care of him and it gets a natural guardianship. No, that's not true.
Sorry to interrupt, Harsh, but we're running short on time and we need to take a few more questions. So my next question is to Subhrajit, because it's quite similar to what we just discussed. The reader, the viewer wants to know that they are looking for a child plan for their newborn. Both the parents are working. Could you suggest some plans, some policies which they can take up?
Okay, I would not suggest any individual product, but I can suggest that you can look at a range of products. I think, as I told you, there are depending on your risk appetite. If you willing to take some risk on the market and so forth, you can go for any unit-linked product which are available with child benefit. And what will happen then if you take that, as I said earlier, also you will not only enjoy the upside of the market, your downside is also protected through an insurance cover. That anything happens, that upside is money is protected, because either your future premiums will be paid in advance and in addition to any lump sum that will be paid. So you can look at any insurance product that is available. We have a Wealth Plus and Wealth Secure products which are catering to such needs. In addition to that, if as said earlier also, if you wanted to look at a little bit of conservative view, you wanted to be a little bit of risk averse, wanted to have a steady income, then you can look up any traditional life insurance policy, either in a non-participating, which ensure that 100% of the return is guaranteed and outside no changes. And I suppose this guarantee element is little misunderstood in terms of long term, and I will come back to that, or any power product which is partially guaranteed and partially can be discretionary. Just wanted to say a line or two on the guarantee benefit. I think if you look at the interest rate, I know at a particular point of time the interest rate was 13%. The people who have locked at a 13% in the early 2000s, their interest rate, suppose some of them are locked in the annuity or some other form of a guarantee, their entire period they will be earning a 13% locked in guarantee. I think guarantee at a falling interest rate is extremely crucial for financial planning, and sometimes we need to adjust to that, because when you are taking a horizon of 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be you are going to earn today's rate going forward. This is further happened. Right. If you look at the last 2 years, the rate has significantly falling. So any guarantee at a long duration is extremely important for my financial planning, especially if you wanted to ensure your child education is protected. So if you are keen on that, you can look for any guaranteed traditional product with a child benefit inbuilt in that. And there are many products available in the market, including ours.
Sure. In fact, we are short on time, so we'll just take one last question from Subhrajit, and I would request you to make it very short. The question is that educational goal is a long-term, yet a fixed plan, as Harsh also mentioned earlier. How can this be achieved with variable return products like mutual funds, where the returns are not fixed, and low return mechanisms like insurance? So if you could quickly suggest him what he should be doing for his kids.
Okay, there are two aspects, as you need to see. So you have a goal fixed. You need to figure out how much you should invest on a regular premium. What the regular premium comes. If you think that is falling short, then you have to see that how you can back it up with the other form of investment at a later stage, because you have to choose. Depending on your risk appetite, you have to choose between a low return, low risk to a high return and high risk portfolio, and that decision is always up to you to do that. It is always preferable, as Harsh also said, that it is better to go for a slightly low risk portfolio, especially when child education is concerned. However, if you have a long it is expected that any high growth instrument over a longish period of time tend to give a higher return, and you can subsequently rebalance. For example, you start with the equity linked mutual fund or equity linked unit linked portfolio. As towards the maturity comes, for the maturity, you can rebalance the portfolio to more fixed interest equity or debt instrument. This can happen as per your choice. You can also choose some of the automated service options given within the product, which automatically rebalances every year from equity to a lower risk such as debt and fixed interest securities. So all these options are available. I suggest that you should speak to your financial advisor and understand these nuances of this and take an appropriate decisions. But as I saying that all these options are available, you need to understand how to go about this.
So all the parents, they need to do their homework right away. They need to plan, they need to think, they need to evaluate to be able to reach to that point where they are able to pursue, their kids are able to pursue their interests, their careers. Thank you both of you for this very interactive and interesting session. Thanks to all the readers, all the viewers who joined us for this session. Just to remind them, it is going to be a series and we'll come up with more interesting topics in the coming days and coming weeks. Stay tuned to Economic Times. Thank you both of you.